All right. I think we're live, Richard. I think we're good to go. Welcome, everybody. Welcome back to another banger episode of Spirits in the Material World. This is a Mid-South podcast where we dig into the stories, the souls, and the sounds that make up this part of the world and other places. So it's really something special. We were actually just talking a little bit about that. I'm sure we'll get into that a little bit more. Today's guest, we got a special one for you. He is proof that authenticity isn't a marketing strategy, it's a way of life. So, ladies and gentlemen, Richard Lynch is a traditional country artist out of Waynesville, Ohio, who has spent the better part of 30 years doing things the hard way and the right way. He's a chart topper, an Ohio Country Music Hall of Fame inductee, and a man who doesn't just sing about the country life, he lives it, farms it, and builds it, by the way, with his own hands. Hopefully we'll get to hear a little bit about that. His property, Keeping It Country Farm, is part of a working farm, part of a concert venue, and part cultural landmark. Home of the Ohio Country Music Hall of Fame and ground zero for the Love Tattoo Foundation, a nonprofit he co-founded to support the veterans, which is near and dear to my heart, who carry the scars from service long after they come home. Richard Lynch, folks, he's a rare kind of artist whose music, his mission, and his Monday morning all look exactly the same. Richard, welcome to Spirits of Material World. How did I do there? Anything you want to add to that?
I think you nailed it, my friend, and I appreciate you having me on and the kind words I appreciate. And hey, anything about good old country music and farm life, man, you got my attention right out of the gate.
Well, that like we were talking about before we got on, there's so much to talk about and explore. And you hit a lot of the things that are near and dear to my heart. I grew up with two grandfathers from the wars, World War II, Korean War, and they were very influential in my upbringing. And so that's very special. And you know, they were ranchers, so I grew up in and around a ranch. So I'm sure we're going to learn about a lot about that. And I was thinking about the music we would listen to. We'd build little model airplanes and listen to God, that one song over and over, "Cool Water," and I forget who's the artist that wrote and sang that.
Sons of the Pioneers.
There you go. I knew it.
Cool, clear water.
That's it. That's it, baby. That's a good one.
Well,
So yeah. So where would you like to start? I love to hear about. You know, I always like to hear about the young Richard and what influenced your life before you got headed down the road that you were headed down. Does that sound like a good place to start?
might as well start from the beginning, right?
I love it. I love it.
Well, I was born in a country music household. My dad was an incredible entertainer, singer, lead guitar player. Could absolutely play and sing like there's no tomorrow. His big influences was people like Hank Williams and Ernest Tubb and Lefty Frizzell. And so I grew up listening to that real deal traditional country music at a young age. My mom, she had little smaller records. She had the 45s. So I listened to Big Bopper and Elvis and Ricky Nelson and all those songs also. But my dad had the 78s, and I knew when I got them out, I was going to hear real country music, man. But I love the fact that, real traditional country music is still, to this very day, a a a need for it today, probably more so now than ever. I just love the fact that I can write a song and pour my heart into it, and people come up to me and say, like, "Richard, I heard your song, and it's almost as if you wrote this song for me."
Wow.
My dad taught me a long time ago, keep it simple, three chords and the truth, and don't try to reinvent music. Don't try to reinvent the world. Just tell your story in a song and put your heart and emotion into it. And I do believe that's some real good advice that he gave me all those years ago, and I've tried to live by those words of advice that he gave me. I just love the fact that I can I can encompass my way of life. We have a farm. We raise a lot of hay, and we had a lot of horses at one point. We're down to just a hay field. Me and my wife, and some people may call it two old crows. Me and her. But we can keep the music and the my way of life. I realize how fortunate I am that I can sit here and talk with my friends and folks like you guys that have an interest in the music that I do. And I attributed everything to how I was raised, and I know how fortunate I am to be able to sing and record and live the lifestyle that I choose, and just keep that simplistic country music that I love so much.
And you hit on something too. I think it's, when we're younger, we don't really have the appreciation of having that simple life and having the ability to do what you're doing and enjoy it. So that's awesome. So your father obviously hugely instrumental, no pun intended, an influence in your career. So one of I was trying to figure out how to kind of have this conversation because, I think like I was telling you before we got on, Cool Water was an example, but just listening to the records that my grandparents would play, they used to refer to them as Western. And when I think about like today, and I think about how the sort of, Nashville's 3 hours away here from me, 3.5 hours. And I think about some of the artists that are very popular today on the radio or what have you. And they refer to what they do as country music, but it sounds a lot to me like pop or even an influence of rap has sort of bled into that. So I guess that's a little bit of a setup to me asking you, what does traditional country mean to you, and and preserving that?
Well, three chords and the truth: a steel guitar, twin fiddles, pure emotion. Not afraid to sing a song of heartbreak or sing a song of absolute jubilation. Country music doesn't have to be crying your beer. Country music can be an absolute foot stomping. Hey, I had a blast at the barn dance, or I had a blast going down to the honky tonk. I love the fact that country music is so diverse, but it seems to me modern so-called country music has taken the heart and the emotion that I was raised with and love to this day out of the song. It's more like a generic, I don't want to touch on that topic thing. Country music was never supposed to be anything but the real deal. If there is a, like for instance, Merle Haggard, he would write a song of how he loves this country. You don't hear any music today how they praise the good old USA or how they miss this or that. I want to touch on all of those topics. I want to be able to sing a song that I get inspired. If I get to go out here in the backyard and I see, some wild turkeys coming by that, I want to be inspired by whatever there and not be afraid to put my thoughts into my music and feel like, well, it's not being welcomed in today's country music today. I want to have that ability to just pour my heart out and let the chips fall where that is. I think a lot of stuff today has been micromanaged to the point where you only get a couple topics to sing about, and the topics they're singing about a hay field and a pickup truck, and most of them have never touched a bale of hay in their life. I promise you.
Correct. Yeah, there's a lot of when I think about country and what I knew about growing up and what I see today, like I was saying, I compare it to the blues, which I'm a huge fan of, and I happen to be fortunate enough to live right in the middle of the Delta. Clarksdale's an hour away south from me, and when you think about the blues and you think about the artists that really made the blues and how the British picked it up, and then you had the Stones and Led Zeppelin and all that came out of that. They lived it. I mean, that was just the blues. That was the blues. I mean, they were sharecroppers. They were picking cotton. They were poor. They were, and I see country kind of the same way. It just has evolved into, maybe it's just the record companies and the production have turned it. To me, it's pop music. It's not Waylon Jennings. It's just not, and it's certainly not Hank Williams. Although they try to replicate that stuff, but like you said, I don't know where. Maybe authenticity is a way to talk about it.
Yeah, I was told a long time ago, just surround yourself with that want to see you be successful, and never take no for an answer. Just get out there. But if you got that burning desire to play music, which I still have a lot of that, I still enjoy getting out and performing, and I still love the fact that people come to our barn and our farm, and they want to hear they want to hear real emotion. They want to hear everything that I pour my heart into, and I'm just glad that I'm finally in a position that I'm just not afraid to write about anything anymore. I put it out there, and not everything I write is going to be a hit. I understand that, but everything I write will be sincere and will be from the heart with absolute emotion. And people can pick up on the difference. If you write something just to be generically writing something without any absolute heart into it, people can see through that.
Right. 100%. I really believe that. So you're outside of the Nashville. We were talking about Nashville. I brought it up. You're sort of outside of that Nashville machine. As an independent artist, how do you build a career outside of, whether it's Nashville or whether it's another place? How does that work? How does an independent artist flourish without having to go down to one of these hubs and be part of that machine?
One at a time.
No, that's it, right? That's a great answer.
But the truth of the matter is, I've been playing music for such a long time, and a reputation that I've always kept it traditional. Back when, it hadn't been that long ago, in the 90s, I considered country music still pretty traditional.
Yeah.
So, and I was around in the 80s and in the late 70s performing and doing things. So I've been fortunate enough to be around and create a reputation of that music for decades now. And I've been able to establish a radio network. I've been on lots and lots of radio networks and independent charts, and I was fortunate enough to be on the WSM Nashville, the radio station. I've done lots and lots of things like that there, but right now I'm telling you that to tell you this: wherever you go, wherever opportunities you have in life with your music, take advantage of it and build upon them, because we just got offered we are currently doing our radio show it's called Real Roots Radio. We do a network of 3 AM and 3 FM stations. And of course, it's on the internet. You can get it worldwide. But every Saturday, me and my wife do what we call Keeping It Country with Richard and Donna. And it's amazing, the folks that call in, and we play from Hank Williams all the way up to the 90s and early 2000s. But it's amazing the people that genuinely call and want to hear that traditional music. And I wouldn't have gotten that position had I not stayed traditional, had I not stayed the direction that I chose. All my records and all my CDs and all my albums pretty much reflect on all that traditional sounding music. And that ultimately got me this position with the radio show that we're doing.
That's fantastic. That must be fun.
It really is. And we get people listening from all over the world. People will call in from all over the States. We get people calling in from Canada. We get people calling in from England, Wales, Australia. And we just do a live show, and we do from 9 to 1, and we take requests. We which in itself is almost unheard of anymore. But it's just a reflection that the music is about the people, the fans, and when the fans find the music that they can reflect with and have a connection with, they want to go where it's being heard, and they want to go where they can find it, and just be real to
Yeah,
people.
that's awesome. What instruments do you play?
Well, I play guitar, acoustic guitar. I play a little bit of electric guitar occasionally. I play a little bit of bass, not much. Started off playing drums, but pretty much just a guitar is pretty much what I do.
Yeah, yeah. What age did you pick it up?
I'm sorry?
What age did you pick up playing the guitar?
Well, my dad, he always had an old Gibson guitar always laying around, and I knew where he kept it hid. So
There you go.
at a very young age, he could always come home and knew that I'd had his guitar out. I couldn't tell him any different. He knew right away. But yeah, I love the old Gibsons, old Martin guitars. I've got a couple Martins now. I love the.
Beautiful.
I just love the fact that, and when I was on the road playing all the time, I had a Takamine that, man, you could just beat it to death, and it was just a hammer guitar. Of course, I don't want to beat up the nicer guitars, but that's why I had that Takamine on the road. It always sounded good, but it just would take a beating. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Did you start playing the guitar and singing, or you started playing the guitar and then all of a sudden you're like, well, I'm going to sing too. Let me see if I can sing like my dad or something. How did
Well,
that happen?
me and Dad would always sit on the back porch, and I would watch his fingers intently. I mean, he was just like, and when you're a kid, we're watching your dad, and his lightning fingers, it seemed like it was lightning to me, because he could just play, and everything was right, and I would just love to sit there on the back porch with me and Dad at the old farmhouse, and I would learn a chord, and he would show me a chord, and it got to where I finally could strum and rhythm and play, and then start to sing a song with it. It took me a while. I was probably 12 or maybe 12 or 13 years old before I could actually have the rhythm down where I could play and sing at the same time. It took a little while to get there, but I'm Woody Lynch's son. I had no choice. I had to make sure I lived up to Dad's expectations.
Those some big shoes to fill. I understand that. Um, that's really great. So let's move on in life a little bit. It sounds like from everything I've researched and I listened to, you had a milestone with A Better Place.
Yeah, I didn't write that song. A real good friend of mine, Billy Yates, wrote that particular song, and I recorded an entire album. We entitled the album "A Better Place." It did 33 weeks at #1 on the indie charts. I don't think anybody has ever surpassed that since that. But what a milestone! And we recorded that and released that in 2015. And that if you look at the timeline, traditional country music at that time was not the stay, and to have a song of that caliber stay on the charts for that long told me, hey, I'm onto something here. People still want to hear traditional country music, and that song is all about steel guitar, rip your heart out. So yeah, that song really did well for me.
It's awesome. And it opens up with a nice little piano.
Oh yes. Well, I mean, that song is all about emotion. It
Yeah.
really is.
And duets. Have you done some duets?
Yes, I've done some duets with Billy Yates. I've
Okay.
done some duet with Ronnie McDowell, Rhonda Vincent, Leona Williams. I've done some duets with David Frizzell. So
Wow.
yeah, 6 or 7 of my heroes I've been fortunate enough to be in the studio with and do some duets with them. and some others I've done some live stuff with, but not in the studio. Yeah, it's a lot of fun to be. It's so gratifying to, as a youngster, get in the studio and be on a stage with somebody that you grew up idolizing and grew up loving their music, and to get to the point where you're recording with them and performing with them. That's quite an achievement that I feel.
That I can't imagine. Is it for you? Is it a moment of, man, I just got to make sure I don't screw this up and do really well, or is it a moment of, I'm going to listen and learn everything I can while I'm here?
Well, a little bit of both.
A little bit of both. Okay. I'm just picturing myself. I'd be like so nervous.
Well, I love the fact that most of these country entertainers and stars that I grew up listening to and was influenced by, when you get to know them, you realize they're just one of us. They've just had a little bit of luck to where they've had some success, but very few people I've ever worked with and performed with, ever had a attitude or a star mentality. They just seem like, man, they're just one of us, and I just love that about those artists.
Right. Yeah, that's got to be something special. Well, I'm just dying to hear about keeping it country farm. I want to hear, like, when did that start? What was the idea? And what's going on today?
Well, me and my wife, we started the farm, started the barn here on the farm, and the idea came to us in 2013. And it took me a couple years to get the building built. It's a beautiful barn venue. We wanted to have a place where we didn't necessarily have to drive 8 or 10 hours or 12 hours or 15 hours to a gig. We was on the road for so long, playing all over the place. And it's nice that we have finally got a venue here on our farm that once a month, May through October, we'll bring a Grand Ole Opry star. And we just let everybody come here to the farm. It's a beautiful, intimate farm setting in a barn. We usually set 300 or 350 people in the building. Of course, we sell tickets and we pre-sell tickets, but we did it. We didn't want to just do it to be doing it. We wanted it to have a cause behind it, and we got affiliated with some folks that really appreciate our veterans and of all conflicts from World War II till present. I was fortunate to meet somebody that really appreciates our veterans, and I thought, wow, wouldn't it be cool if we could kind of put some country music fans in the barn and maybe help support a veteran in the process. So a portion of all our proceeds every year goes to some worthy cause, whether it be a veteran organization out of Michigan, Ohio, Kentucky, Indiana, West Virginia, somewhere somebody gets benefited as far as a veteran is concerned, or an organization that we donate to at the end of the year, every year here at the farm. Like I say, we bring Grand Ole Opry stars. People love to come here, and they can get up close and personal and intimate. They don't have to have any type of fear of the big towns. There's never no crime or anything. We got ducks on the pond right now, so everything's good right here on the farm. On the farm, people love coming here because they just feel so comfortable.
That's wonderful.
And the fact that you got the country music, and then you add the fact that we can be a beneficiary or be beneficial to some folks who are so deserving, like our men and women who have served in our military. I'm really proud of the fact that we can do all that here at the farm.
Wow, that is special. And 300, 350. I mean, that's a good setup.
It really is. I built the barn, I should say, with every expectation of making the musician feel comfortable. I mean, I've been places and played where you got to get an extension cord and plug your amp in 40 feet that way. No, we make sure all our musicians and all the singers and entertainers are well taken care of, and they really appreciate that. We make sure they're fed good and they got a good place to stay. and I mentioned how much the folks come, they come into the barn, and a lot of folks have agricultural upbringing, whether it be their parents or grandparents. They have some kind of upbringing about agriculture, and so they walk into the barn for the first time, and I see them looking around, and I hear people say, "Wow, this is like mom's house," or "This is like grandma's barn," or something like that. So they make a connection immediately. They feel comfortable immediately, and they get to be around the stars and the music that they love, and ultimately uh, shake their hand or hug their neck, get pictures with all their fans, their artists. It's just a win-win situation here.
That's awesome. And tell me about building the barn.
Well, I guess I'm my dad's mini me. He was a builder, a farmer, a musician. I just chased him around, did everything he did, and ultimately I still do. So I built the farm. My dad was a really good builder, and I just learned from him how to build and what to expect, and build it with pride. It takes a little while to do something, of course, but anything worth doing takes a little bit of time to do it. But I just took an awful lot of pride in this barn. Me and my wife, we work. It takes a lot of work to keep it all up, and we make sure it's tip top shape every show. Yeah, I love the farm, and I love the fact that I'm fortunate enough to be able to work the farm and build what I want to build and play music and write songs. I mean, I know how fortunate I am. I really do.
So when you're doing something with the purpose, building the barn, and you're going to have live music, what do you do? What do you do differently for the sound?
Well, we took the sound, and I took hemlock siding every aspect inside of that barn, and of
Okay.
course behind the siding we had it insulated, and we got burlap across the entire ceiling. It's a vaulted ceiling, and the burlap acts as a deafener, I guess you might call it a cushion to allow, you get into a barn, you could hear sound echoing. We've eliminated all of that sound. It sounds like $1 million in that barn. And then you add a couple hundred people in the barn in addition to what we did, and it's just amazing the sound that's in that barn.
And I would imagine the power, the electricity you've got out there.
Yeah, we've got a nice power source.
You got people plugging in
on the farm. You can bet on that.
And how often do you typically have guests out there?
Artists? Once a month.
You're doing it once a month? Okay.
Once a month during the warm weather, May through to October. And then our first guest will be Mo Pitney next Saturday, the 30th of May. He'll be our first artist. And then a little group out of Australia who came to Nashville a few years ago and has done really well. It's called the French Family Band. They will be on the stage in June. The first weekend, we're not doing anything in July. We have things that we're doing, but we're doing 2 shows in August. The 1st of August, Rhonda Vincent from the Grand Ole Opry will be gracing the stage with us here. Then Buddy Jewell had some big hits in the early 2000s. He'll be on the 29th of August. And then there's a fella called Billy Crash Craddock. Billy Crash Craddock had some huge hits in the 70s and early 80s. He still performs, and we're so blessed to have him coming to the farm in October. And then in September. October will be our last Grand Ole Opry star with Susie Boggess. And then we always conclude our season in November with we call Richard Lynch and Friends. And
Nice.
We have so many guests. You can't believe how many talented singers are out there that we are affiliated with and get to meet and hang around with that don't get an awful lot of opportunities. We invite them to the stage. We have a big time in November, and it is always a sold out. It's a blast. And all these folks do is they get to play their real country music, and that's what those people are paying the tickets for, to hear that real country music. So there's the conclusion for our season right there.
Wow, that's awesome. So for those listening, how do people find out about your events, and maybe some of them want to come?
Well, we get a lot of folks that from these type of shows that they'll take a 2 or 3 day vacation from Virginia or Tennessee or Mississippi or wherever, and they can go to richardlynchband.com, and you can find out all the information you need to know about the Keeping It Country Farm, and it shows our schedule for the year. Or you can listen to Real Roots Radio every Saturday morning from 9 to 1, and we'll talk about it there too.
I love that. I'm going to have to check that out. I'm sure I have an iHeartRadio app, and somehow I can find radio stations anywhere on that thing. I bet you I could find it.
I bet you can get Real Roots Radio on your app. I promise you can.
Right. That's awesome. Okay, how about let's talk a little bit, or tell me a little bit about the Ohio Country Music Hall of Fame.
Well, me and my wife, she's so amazing. And we found out that Ohio did not have a Country Music Hall of Fame. And there is so many amazing artists that came from Ohio. And we thought, what a shame. So me and my wife, and we got a director to help us, Jackie Thomas. He's the director of the Ohio Country Music Hall of Fame, him and his wife. And we thought, let's put our heads together and create this. So we put it together about, I think 9 years ago now. And we've inducted a lot of the big time, Bobby Bear and Johnny Paycheck and all the names that you would know from the state of Ohio, Earl Thomas Conley, and on and on. And I can go on and on. But we've also got some folks that are so deserving that didn't necessarily have maybe mainstream or just a little bit of mainstream success, but they're great songwriters, they're great entertainers, and they're all from the state of Ohio. And we just thought, hey, there is a need for the recognition for these folks who's paid their life, paid their dues. Someone needs to say, hey, we appreciate you guys, what you've done. And so we created the Hall of Fame.
Wow.
And once a month, whenever we do the shows out here, we induct somebody from the great state of Ohio and put them in there for the Hall of Fame.
That is something. So you guys came up with that?
Yeah, we did.
That's something else. How do you even start? Where do you even start? Where do you go? Who do you call?
Well, I've been blessed to work with so many of the artists over time, and I've gotten to know a bunch of them. And once you put your head together, and we are fortunate to have Jackie Thomas, who is the director, and he is so professional. He will make the initial phone call to whoever we're trying to get in for the next year for the induction. He'll make the phone call. He'll get the initial conversation going, and we'd love to have them come to the farm and be here to receive their award. And they get the Ohio statue, and they get an Ohio belt buckle, all customized, and they're just an appreciation. But sometimes we don't necessarily have the ability to have them come here. Like we inducted Connie Smith into the Hall of Fame, and could not get her schedule to be in Ohio at the Keeping It Country Farm for the induction. So they come up with, hey, why don't we induct Connie Smith at the Grand Ole Opry for the Ohio Country Music Hall of Fame? And I thought, well, let me think. Yeah, we can do that. So we inducted her on the stage at the Grand Ole Opry in honor for the Ohio Country Music Hall of Fame.
How about that? That is special. Wow. I'm sure she loved that. How many when you were thinking about doing this, how many states have a Country Music Hall of Fame?
How many what?
How many states have a Country Music Hall of Fame?
I think there's 8 or 10 or 12.
Yeah.
I mean,
Okay. Yeah.
it's not as much as you thought it should be. We thought as Ohio has contributed to our brand of music, we got to come up with the Hall of Fame, and we put our heads together and put our effort together and registered everything, and it's really been it's a labor of love because people come there, and a lot of the folks have passed, and their family come and their kids come, and it's just so overwhelming to see the family show appreciation when someone wants to induct them into the Hall of Fame. It's just overwhelming.
Right. That's special. Wow. Well done. That's a legacy right there.
Well, thank you. My wife was amazing. People say, Richard, were you doing this? You doing that? I said, I get up in the morning and I say, honey, what are we doing today?
I think we all have a little bit of that.
Yeah. Happy wife, happy life.
That's it. That's it. I think you maybe already kind of talked a little bit about this, but let's talk about and tell us about the Love Tattoo Foundation.
Well, the Love Tattoo Foundation kind of fell in my lap. A guy named Chuck Brisbane lives in Virginia Beach, Virginia. And he remember back when the Afghanistan war was taking place, and you were seeing these pictures on the news nightly, how, these veterans or these military guys and gals are coming back in the hospital and they're shot up. It was pitiful. Well, Chuck Brisbane happened to live in Virginia Beach, and he went and visited a member that had come back from the Afghanistan conflict, and just to see the man and show him his appreciation because he loves our military and our veterans. So Chuck went to the hospital with every expectation to see this veteran, and of course it was the first casualty of the war, so he was getting a lot of airtime and on the news. And Chuck went to the hospital, and he went to the room where the veteran was, and he had written a note and put on his door of the veteran's door in his hospital bed, if you're coming here to feel sorry for me, please leave. And I thought, wow, this guy's amazing. So Chuck ultimately got to meet the veteran, and there's an array of emotion came over him. And so he went home and he wrote a poem, and he sent it to me. He said, Richard, I've got a poem, and I think I'd love to see if you would try to put some music to it, and let's make a song and show our appreciation for these veterans. So he sent it to me. I looked at it, and I used a portion of his lyrics, and I added some lyrics to myself, of mine for my own to get to this song. And we wrote a song called "The Love Tattoo," and it's just an appreciation for our veterans who have sacrificed so much. And it ultimately that little song turned into the Keeping It Country Farm. We do it every show, and we called. If you want to find out and buy tickets, you go to the Love Tattoo Foundation, which is one of the places you can buy tickets for the farm here, which ultimately is gets the donations to our veterans. But the song came in form of a poem, and I was fortunate enough to have it sent to me, and I put my own touch to it. I put my own feel to it, got in the studio and recorded it. And we recorded it, and I was so excited about it because people was really, they were clamoring to it and wanting to hear it, just because we had a purpose for the veterans. So I did a show with a guy named Ronnie McDowell, and Ronnie had a lot of big hits in the 80s and early 90s. And I didn't know this about Ronnie, but he had done 3 tours of duty in Vietnam. And I said, Ronnie, I've got this song that I think it would really do well if as a duet, and I know you're an Army veteran. Would you consider listening to it? And he said, yeah, play it for me. So I did. He said, when are we getting in the studio?
Wow.
So we recorded the song together, and all the proceeds from that song has gone to help all our veterans, or help the veterans in some way, shape, or form. every red penny that came from that proceeds of that song goes to help our veterans.
Wow. To this very day.
To this very day.
How about that? And where can we find that song if we want to? Is it CDs, albums? Is it how can we enjoy the song and contribute to an amazing cause?
Well, you can go to my website, richardlynchband.com, and pull up, because my music's on all these social medias, all the music networks. Just look up Love Tattoo with a duet with Ronnie McDowell and myself, Richard Lynch. And you can listen to it to this day. And it'll definitely get played this weekend, being this Memorial Day weekend. We'll definitely get a lot of airplay on it this weekend.
Can you, I don't want to put you on the spot. I probably should have asked you this before we got on the air, but can you recite the poem? You don't have to sing it, but can you recite the poem?
He loves his God, his kids, his wife. For them he gladly give his life. He served his country as heroes do, and he came home with a love tattoo. That's kind of the chorus.
That's beautiful. Well
Thank
done.
you.
Well done. Well done. All right, we'll have to everybody go to your website and pull that up. That's fantastic. How do you determine where to direct the funds for the foundation? Is there a support group that helps you do that, or do you get together every month and figure out how you're going to do it?
Well, it's a one-time. It's the end of our season that we will dedicate a substantial amount of money. Usually sometime in December, we'll have a person in mind, or a network in mind, or a deserving organization in mind, I guess you might say. But my wife and Jackie Thomas and other folks typically handle that end of things. I'm just glad that I can sing the song and have folks come up to me. You know, the most rewarding thing to me that's come out of this song was, we did a show in Michigan. It's been 6 or 7 years ago now. And there was 9 World War II veterans in the audience that day. And after the show was over and I did the song, I wanted to walk down, and because my dad was a World War II veteran, I went down and I wanted to talk with him. And the first gentleman I walked up to, he thanked me. And I got so emotional. I said, "No, we got this all wrong. This is not I don't want any thanks from me. I'm doing it thanks for what you guys have done." And they were just so appreciative that someone thought enough of them to write a song about them and invite them to a concert. It was pretty emotional.
That's fantastic. Well, for everybody listening, go to richardlynchband.com and show your support for the veterans and Love Tattoo Foundation. That's fantastic. Well, let's see. Faith, family, farming, country music. I've been trying to keep track of all of the things. How does it all tie together? I think it's part of your story, and certainly the way you live your life.
How I was raised, we didn't have a whole lot. We never went hungry, but we worked as youngsters. My dad, and he bestowed a work ethic in me that to this day, and I'm glad he did. I love working. I love being able to do things that that hold water, that has substance, that means something to somebody. And when you're a kid, you don't necessarily appreciate it. But now that we've gotten older, I realize, hey, my dad really raised us right, and I'm glad that he bestowed that work ethic in me. It's not work if you love what you do. I love being on the farm and baling hay. I love playing music, and I love being around people. I realize that I'm a very fortunate man, and I can live life pretty much on my own terms.
Yeah.
But I love the fact that we can keep great country music on the airwaves. We can keep great country music here at the farm. We can just love our life and just be normal. Just appreciate from one day to the next.
That's it. That's it. What would you want, or what would you say to the next generation of country artists? What do they need to carry forward?
Well, I touched on it just a little bit. If you're a youngster and you're listening to this here and you need to be inspired, don't never take no for an answer. Don't never surround yourself with people that want to see you succeed. Um, don't let somebody say you can't do this, you can't do that. Just be determined, and like I say, surround yourself with people that want to see you successful, and you will be successful.
That's it. That's it. Just work hard, keep your nose to the grind.
Absolutely. Don't take somebody else's opinion, because you can sing, you can play. If you have a burning desire to do that, you get out there and you do it. You're going to find your success.
Right. And I think probably what's different maybe from when you were just getting started growing up, 70s, 80s, is the ability now for young artists to be heard and maybe even distribute their music has changed so much
Yeah.
than it used to be. And I'm not an expert on it, but just on a computer, you can have the software that can do amazing things for a young artist coming up, and then distribute it to platforms with digital media is just got to be an extraordinary. And YouTube, I mean, look what YouTube's done for so many people.
Yeah. You're exactly right. You can be heard today and have, an amazing amount of opportunities today that we didn't have when we were growing up.
No.
What I had growing up was a dad that had been playing music for 30 years, and I'd be out playing somewhere, and someone would say, "Hey, ain't he too young to be in here?" And they'd say, "Oh, that's Woody's boy. He's all right." So, but you don't have that today.
Right. And even with all the new technology and stuff like that, I still think a lot of it comes down to building relationships.
Absolutely. You got to network. You got to, as an artist, if you tell somebody something, you better make sure you do it, because a no show, something that you put yourself in a position to people talk bad about you, they will. Never give someone an opportunity to belittle you. You got to make sure your word is everything.
Right.
You tell somebody you're going to do something, you make sure you do it.
Make sure you do it. Right. As we were talking, I was thinking about technology, and it seems like, even this morning, I was reading an article in, I think it was Wall Street Journal, and it had a picture. It had a picture of this young female artist, and it said this young female artist has 400,000 followers on Instagram, a certain amount of hit songs already being listened to. This artist isn't real. This is AI. Well, is that something that you guys talk about these days? Is that something you hear about? Does that affect your world?
Every week, somebody, at least one person, will send me a AI generated song, to which I say, "Thank you for your interest, but I cannot use anything AI in my world." And now, I'm not belittling it. If somebody else chooses to go that route, great. But for me, if somebody sends me something that they wrote and it's from the heart, and it's not some computer generated lyric, I'm in. But if it's not real, I don't accept it.
Yeah.
That's just me.
Yeah. No, I get it.
Yeah. So ultimately, the ruination of our country, of music in general, is the fact that AI is taken over. So if you contributed to that, you're ruining your own career, because at some point, the individual music is being washed out with all the AI music. So
That's right. That's right.
There's no need to help it along as far as I'm concerned.
Well, and I've listened to, not a lot, but I've listened to comparisons, and I just don't think you can replicate the heart and soul and the emotion through the technology. And I can tell you right now, I'm not driving to Waynesville, Ohio to keeping it country and sitting in a barn listening to a computer.
No.
You know what I mean?
Ain't happening.
It's the real deal. If it's not the real deal, it's not happening.
Yeah. I'm glad you said that, because there's so many people that feel the same way. You know, when they come to the farm, people just, it's amazing to step back and watch. They line up around the building, and they line up, and the doors open at 6:00. And man, it's like, hey, everybody has a good seat. You don't have to be you don't have to rush the stage. It will be fine. But people come and they want to hear, they want to hear and feel that what we're talking about. It's the real deal.
It is.
You can't fake it anywhere. It's something that's from the heart, and the people pick up on the fact that, hey, it is from the heart, and the music, the surrounding, the farm, it's pretty amazing. It really is. And
Right.
I just sit back and look at it. I'm like, my goodness, we created this. How do we do this?
Oh, you got to be so proud, you and your wife. That is really, it's amazing. It really is. It's special.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So what's next? Is there anything next, or is it, let's just build on what we got?
Well, we got, I'm always writing songs. I'm always looking for, I'm always looking for something that's a good song that gets sent to me. And we're going to record again soon. We have 10 full-length CDs that we've recorded over the last 8 or 10 years. So we're looking forward to getting back in the studio again with some new music.
Nice.
That's not. We don't go to Nashville unless we have enough music for a whole session, 6 or 12 songs. So we're looking forward to that again. I love the fact that our last CD that we just recorded was Songs of Inspiration. That's really done well for us. I'm not afraid to say how much we love the Lord. Country music is supposed to be an appreciation for all ideas, and I grew up listening to songs that made reference to the Lord, and like Chris Christopherson, "Why Me, Lord?" That's a prime example. I think we could make mention of God more in country music, and so I'm not afraid to reach out and kind of go towards that direction of the gospel side. But I just love the good music. I want to make sure it stays traditional, steel guitars and fiddles, and
Love it.
just from the heart,
That's fantastic. Before we wrap up, we were, you and I were talking about, I woke up to 5 turkey, big toms out in the back. I got to tell you something that we've had here for about the last 2 months. And this is just, I tell everybody, by the way, so I'm the crazy guy that tells everybody, but we've had 5 American bald eagles living on our pond out back. We got about a 7-acre lake out back. And I think you're somebody that can appreciate that. There are two adults, exactly what you would picture, and then 3 young ones, and they look like they're a vanilla colored spotted eagle, and they hunt in the morning at about 6 o'clock to 7 o'clock. So I don't have any more bass in my lake; they're all gone. But we sit here and we watch them hunt, and I have it on video. I'll send it to you. I have it on video. And then around 5:30, 6 o'clock in the evening, they fish. And they've been here for the last, I haven't, we're fully grown right now with the trees, so I haven't found a nest yet, but I'm really hoping I can find a nest.
I love that.
Yeah. It's really something. So yeah, I'm the crazy eagle guy that likes to tell everybody.
Ultimately, that tells me you love this good old US of A right there, my friend.
That's it.
Yeah.
The one and only.
We are so blessed to live in a country that allows us to share our music, to share our values, and to be around something so special and something beyond above ourselves, I guess you might
That's
say. We are so blessed to live here, and God bless our country.
100%. Well, listen, I appreciate this has just been a special treat. I want to remind everybody, richardlynchband.com. I will be going there immediately after this and celebrating and donating. I want everybody to do the same thing. And hey, Richard, you and your wife have a wonderful summer with the festival every month at the barn. Hopefully the weather's good for you for all of that. And good luck on your upcoming recording sessions. I'm sure you're excited about that.
I am, and thank you. God bless you, and
bless
thank you for the opportunity to have a conversation with you and get to know you a little bit. And let's keep it country. What do you think?
Let's keep it country. I love it.
See ya.
See ya.